And good morning, everybody. It's time now for Putnam County Today here on 94.3 WREB. Chris Edwards is in with us, and Chris, we're enjoying the fall foliage, so to speak, as far as the leaves changing on the tree. But for people like you and me, that's a sign of something different, right?
Yes.
Winter's right around the corner.
Yeah, we could see snow this month actually, being October now. We've had some pretty decent snowstorms in mid-October. Back in '89, we had, I think, 7 or 8 inch snowfall.
Wow.
So, but yeah, it's right around the corner, and we need to start getting ready for, well, winter. Hopefully not as bad as last year.
That was my next question because it's on everybody's mind.
Yes.
The almanac's predicting kind of a bad winter. Some other people are saying it's kind of determined on the El Nino down in the south. Have you heard anything about what winter's supposed to be like this year?
Yeah, I actually talked to the National Weather Service this morning on the phone with a conference call, but the Climate Prediction Center is forecasting for Indiana a equal chance for above normal or below normal temperatures, and precipitation will be we're right in the middle of below normal.
Okay.
Which was virtually opposite from last year.
Right.
So, but yeah, the Farmer's Almanac, I've done studies and my own, tests in the background in the past, and it's not all too accurate.
Right.
I think when I was doing my survey to see how reliable it was, it normally got 1 out of every 5 forecast right.
Okay.
But of course, that's just an average. They get lucky more than once in a while. But yeah, it's looking like a potentially dry winter. Temperature could swing either way.
Okay.
Right now, their main key factor is the El Nino, which is forecasted to set up in the Pacific Ocean, which they also forecasted last year, but did not materialize.
Right.
The temperatures in the Pacific Ocean actually stayed near average.
Okay.
And it was supposed to be well above normal.
Now, I think a lot of people probably do not understand how that affects weather here in Indiana. I mean, it's so far south. So maybe we should explain that a little bit.
Well, the El Nino is the opposite of what we've been having the last several years, which is a La Nina, which is a cooler than normal stretch of water from Peru, the country of Peru, all the way towards Australia. It also has an effect on the hurricane seasons in the Atlantic and the Pacific.
Right.
We've actually slipped towards the El Nino this year, where temperatures are about 1 degree above normal. It's forecast to intensify a little bit more, but warmer ocean temperatures out there causes more hurricanes in the Pacific, as we've seen off the west coast of Mexico.
Right.
And the increased thunderstorm activity from the warmer waters in the Pacific causes greater wind shear over the Atlantic Ocean, which rips hurricanes apart, which we've only reached the E storm this year, and which is below normal for what we've seen since '95.
Right.
But either way, what it does, the increased thunderstorm activity in the Pacific Ocean, the outflow, the exhaust from those thunderstorms actually affects the jet stream, which causes it to shift positions for what it normally would not do. And whenever the Pacific Ocean cools off, it has the exact opposite effect. We have more hurricanes in the Atlantic, less in the Pacific.
Right.
Causes less wind shear. But it also affects severe weather, as well as pretty much every aspect to global weather patterns. Monsoons change around. For the United States, the southeast normally is wetter and warmer than normal during El Nino, especially a strong one. This is just forecast to be a moderate strength. So temperatures are supposed to warm up about 2, maybe 3 degrees Fahrenheit. But what it does is causes the subtropical jet, which runs over that particular area of the Pacific Ocean, to amplify, and actually helps draw warmer air up towards the Midwest and the Southeast. And along with that, coming out of the subtropical area, it also brings out more moisture.
Okay.
But there's some other factors. It'd be too lengthy to go into, but it's forecast that the Gulf of Mexico will, for the most part, be shut down for this far north.
Okay.
For the southeastern states, it'll be more ample, probably more severe weather outbreaks.
Okay.
down there, especially late winter and early spring. But of course, that's just a forecast, and we'll see how that materializes as the year goes by.
So are we expecting any of those 30-degree below zero type days in January?
No, we will have some cold snaps. This is, of course, a forecast of average temperatures. Right. So we could have 2 weeks well below normal, then turn around and have 2 weeks well above normal, and we'd still be normal.
Okay.
So if that makes sense. But it's just an average. January, of course, is our coldest. The coldest average date of the year is January 17th. After then, the temperatures start rebounding from the longer days,
right,
which by that time is already 4 weeks into.
Right.
Our shortest day being the first day of winter.
Right.
So, but the atmosphere always lags behind 2 or 3 weeks. Normally during the summer, our longest day is June 20th.
Right.
But our normal highest average temperature is July 17th.
Wow.
So it lags behind, and the same way with the winter. We just normally don't notice it until March rolls around.
Exactly.
It just keeps going and going, and last year it just never seemed like it was never going to
Oh,
end.
yeah. And I think people got a lot of cabin fever last year.
Yeah, we sure did. But believe it or not, last winter, as cold as it was here, and a lot of climate change people were throwing the idea out the window.
Right.
Look at Russia during the Olympics.
Right, exactly.
They could keep snow on the ground, and it's normally 10, 20 below zero there.
And I didn't keep track last year of how many days that like Anchorage, Alaska was warmer than we were here in Greencastle.
Yeah, Anchorage, Alaska was actually setting record highs in the 60s during January and February when we were below zero here.
Exactly.
But it's because that upper level, it was a polar vortex that sets up. It only gives us about a 2-week notice when they are about to set up. But it's over the Hudson Bay, which is far north from here.
Right.
But what it does, it sends down every 2 or 3 days a little weakness or a disturbance in the upper atmosphere produces light snow as it rotates around the main circulation, which in this case over the Hudson Bay counterclockwise would bring wind straight off the North Pole.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons we had snow every 2 or 3 days, and we couldn't get above 20 degrees, it seemed like. But even through all that, we still managed to have a tornado in February.
I know.
We had 2 days where it warmed up into the 60s, and that's all it required. We had a tornado just southeast of Crawfordsville that tracked all the way up to Darlington.
Right.
Darlington. It was a weak one, but still, and there was still snow on the ground in areas. But it just shows no matter what time of year it is, severe weather can strike. You just have to have a brief moment where the conditions come together.
Right.
And of course, we had winter storm after winter storm. It just seemed like it wasn't going to end. But yeah, it still threw some tornadoes at us, some floods, and just some real high heating bills.
Exactly.
So I think everyone can relate to that.
Well, real quickly, I want to kind of talk a little bit about people in the county being prepared, for the winter weather. We always talk about keeping blankets and stuff in your car. I think people need to also remember, even if you're at home, you kind of have to be a little prepared.
Yes, especially if we ever have an ice storm again that knocks out power for several days. It's always good to have at least, they say 3 days, I say a week. Because I've seen ice storms, especially back in '88, where I had no power for 2 weeks.
Right.
And fortunately it wasn't Arctic cold, but if we would have an ice storm, then some of the sub-zero temperatures we had back in January and February of this year, you always need to have plenty of blankets for everyone. Sleeping bags are even better because it actually bottles the heat up around you. At least enough water for, I think it's about 1 gallon. I'd say about 1.5 gallons to 2 gallons myself for each person for every day.
Okay.
And of course, food as well. Non-perishable canned foods. Have a can opener. Beans are good. Stuff that you don't have to cook.
Right.
But also, you can just make sure you have some backup cash saved up for gasoline, so forth, because of course if the power goes out, a lot of gas stations lose power capability. Fill up your gas tanks the day before a storm or the morning before it starts. If you have to travel during the storm, if the storm's going to start when you're at work, it's sometimes even prefer you stay home
Right.
if you can. I know a lot of companies don't allow that or give you a chewing,
You're right.
you know, for playing it safe, but I'll never understand that myself. But person's personal safety is more important, in my opinion,
Right.
than pretty much anything else.
And, you know, I think like with last year, we had plenty of warning before these snowstorms, before the cold weather. Like I said, we had a couple of weeks to kind of get people ready. But I still think some people, you know, just kind of took them by surprise. You know, one thing, the National Weather Service, even Putnam County EMA, you know, they're all on Facebook. They all have places where you can go, and I know you guys keep yourselves, you know, pretty aware to people, you know, this is what's coming up.
Yeah. And we had that big storm right after New Year's,
Right.
the first week of January, and that's when the cold snap really kicked in and stayed with us. But it really pushed us pretty good over there at the EOC and Emergency Management. We were booking there pretty good for a couple days.
Right.
Because we had some stranded motorists out there and so forth. And of course, that storm was just real hard. The snow came down, you know, in the 30s, low 30s, and then as soon as the front went by, the temperatures plummeted.
Right.
You know, 10, 15 below zero. And all that wet snow just turned to ice.
Exactly.
So, and we normally don't get that kind of a weather storm or weather system around this area too often. And it just caught a lot of people by surprise to the severity. We knew it was coming. The Weather Service actually hit the forecast right.
Right.
You know, they were forecasting 10, 12 inches of snow, and here at Putnam County, I got 11.4 inches. So I think that was pretty accurate. The temperatures, they unfortunately got that right too. I know they have a hard time getting forecasts right sometimes, but of course the atmosphere is a three-dimensional picture.
Right.
What occurs, you know, if you got to get the forecast at the surface right, you have to get the forecast right at all levels
Right.
for it set up. For example, if you have a heat wave like we did 2 years ago during a severe drought, it has to be real warm, you know, 20,000 foot above the ground as well. You know, and the area, the weather had just set up perfectly for that horrible summer that we had. But it just shows Indiana has a very extreme weather. We go from 110 degrees in 2012 to minus 17 degrees this past January. And nature can just throw every trick in the book at us, you know.
And I think the trick is for people to remember to always be prepared for anything here
Yes.
in Indiana.
Well,
you know, if you don't, this old saying is you don't like the weather, wait 24 hours and it'll change.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, I think we've kind of seen that. I mean, although we've had a very nice summer, you know, the temperatures haven't been hot, and I think a lot of people were thinking, okay, this is gearing us up for another bad winter.
Yeah. Well, it's not normally like that. Experience has shown that normally one season is one extreme, the next season will be the exact opposite. But of course, this cool summer followed a very frigid and cold
Right.
winter. The winter actually, we only bottomed out average-wise at about 5 degrees below normal, which don't sound like much, but it just, the averages, it don't show the day-to-day story. It's just all the peaks flattened out, you know, through the month, the low extremes and the highs. We actually had a very tranquil first 4 days of the year.
Right.
And, you know, highs were in the 40s and 50s, a couple 60s down south, and then we had, it just hit. And it just never let go of us. Hope this winter ain't like that, because our financial, you know, heating budgets are still ringing from last winter.
Exactly.
But we had a real nice summer. It also kept the severe weather at bay
Right.
for the most part. Most of the tornado outbreaks occurred in Iowa and Nebraska back in June. Which normally would have been down into this neck of the woods, the
Right.
Midwest, Southern Plains, but those areas were devoid because we did not heat up as much as we should have, which kept the instability limited.
Right. All right, well, Chris, we appreciate you taking time out to be with us. Want to remind folks, though, they can get updates from the Putnam County EMA. Just like them on Facebook, and of course, the best information that's out there is through the National Weather Service. I think a lot of people know that website. They've even got places that tell you what to have on hand to be prepared. So
yeah, they give regular updates. They update the forecast 4 times a day. They don't always hit it, but they do try. Give them credit. The atmosphere is just too complex for any computer to figure out with detail accuracy. You know, there's local environments that play a role. Heat islands around cities and so forth. They all have an effect.
All right. Well, Chris, we're going to try to get you back in here as we get on into winter to kind of keep us updated on different things. But here's hoping we don't have a very eventful winter.
Yeah. And in case we do, just everyone remember that a winter storm, severe thunderstorm, any kind of watch that is issued is for that conditions are favorable for the mentioned weather event to occur. It doesn't mean it will, because conditions change from hour to hour. Every model run is different. We're just kind of smoothing through and going right down the middle of all the model runs. And a warning, of course, means that the chances are highly probable or will be occurring of very severe weather.
All right, Chris.